Hello again and welcome to this week's edition of UC Sports. I'm Nate Nugent alongside Ben Stemmer, and we've got a packed show for you tonight. A lot of great things have been happening out there, and we here at UC Sports are always here to give you the full breakdown of all things sports.
That's right. We've got a great show in store for you all tonight. We'll be covering UConn action in the collegiate level, and we'll be covering some Huskies in the pros. Whatever the case may be, stay tuned because UC Sports has got you covered.
Welcome back to UC Sports. We're going to kick it off today by talking about UConn football. Not the greatest showing out there as our Huskies defense gave up the most points in team history this weekend. For more on the game, Ryan Kim has the latest.
UConn football is looking to continue its conference schedule with a Friday night lights affair against the Memphis Tigers. For the Huskies in this one, their defense would allow a record 70 points against the Tigers offense.
Things looked great on the offensive. UConn got out to a storming lead with a 64-yard touchdown rush by Arkell Newsome just a minute into the game. It was their first opening drive touchdown in 19 games. It was a shootout for about 24 minutes before the electrifying Memphis offense poured it on to the new-look Husky defense.
The defense that we inherited was not built for this defense, okay? And if you look, we don't really have enough linemen to even play a four-man front.
Once the Memphis offense got started, it kept going and going and going some more. The Tigers were unstoppable on all fronts en route to a record-breaking 70-31 victory. Those 70 points broke the 1919 record for points allowed by a UConn team when they gave up 69 to Holy Cross. Records came all around, but none the Huskies would like to remember.
We got to do what we got to do to make sure that this never, ever in the history of UConn football happens again.
Quarterback Riley Ferguson was unmatched by the Huskies' leaky defense. Ferguson threw for 431 yards and 7 touchdowns, tying the conference and school record set by Paxton Lynch. Anthony Miller shredded the defense, hauling in 15 receptions for 224 yards, topped with 4 touchdowns. Memphis tallied 711 total yards, 21 shy of eclipsing the UConn record for yards allowed in a single game.
UConn will head into Week 6 with a 4-game losing skid. The Huskies will look to right the ship against the Temple Tough offense in Philadelphia next Saturday. From Pratt & Whitney Stadium at Rensselaer Field, I'm Ryan Kim, UC Sports.
Now let's kick it to our analyst, Ryan Kim, who we have in the studio for all the details on UConn football. Ryan, what do you think happened out there with our Huskies Friday night?
You know, Nate, I think this one has to be put on the defense. I don't think there's any other way you can put it. I think the Huskies, they started out fine. They were keeping up with Memphis for about a quarter and a half before things started falling apart. And something we've seen time and time again is the weak secondary. It was on full display on Friday night as Anthony Miller, wide receiver for the Tigers, he made out like a bandit. He had 15 receptions for 220-plus yards and 4 touchdowns. He almost doubled his season numbers in this one game against UConn. And another thing is the Huskies, they seem to lose momentum as soon as the football was turned over. So they had 3 fumbles lost, 5 fumbles total. But each one of those fumbles, they kind of added up. And, you know, Randy's Edsall's squad, they couldn't regroup after allowing the extra possessions. And ultimately, it was their defense that led to their downfall in this game. And it's a message that we've had time and time again.
You're right. I know that last week we talked about defense, and yet we didn't see much better this week. What changes do you think we need to make to bounce back?
Yeah, like you said, I don't think there's not much that needs to be said about what happened. It was 70-31. I mean, that speaks for itself. But this game, it does have a lot to learn from for the young Huskies team, which is good. That's a plus. But on the other side, that the next game is against a Temple team that, you know, they've had some troubles with in the past. So they need to look past the loss, prepare for another tough opponent, and hopefully they can adjust to the Owls this coming Saturday. quarterback Logan Marchie for the Owls. He's taken over the reins of an Owls team that's just like UConn. They're overhauled. They have a new coaching staff who's now led by SEC product Jeff Collins, his first head coaching gig, who's just like Randy Edsall, adjusting to life in the American Conference. And what's not gone for the Temple Owls is their defensive presence. The Owls linebackers are still formidable, and on the ground, on the offensive side, they can still pound the ball to the inside with Raquel Armstead. So UConn, they need to look to stop a beatable Temple team, more so in the past, just because of the struggles that they have had against Villanova, UMass, and USF for the Owls. But recently, the Owls had a good game coming off a big win against ECU. But it should be a very good game if, very big if, the Huskies can adjust to the Owls' offense and get themselves together defensively. If they can get themselves together defensively, I think the offense will follow as it has the past weeks, and I think they should be able to pull out a win.
I totally agree. And going off that, who do you think has been the impact player this season for the Huskies?
I'd have to say definitely the offense as a whole. I mean, even with the injury to Hergy Mayala, Bryant Sheriff is finding ways to move the ball around. You saw it on Friday night with Arkell Newsom's 64-yard rush to start the game. That started the scoring. Certainly didn't end the scoring for the Huskies, but offensively, I think they're right there with the best of them in the American. They had a three-headed monster in the backfield, led by Newsom, but then they have Nate Hopkins and Kevin Mensah, both coming in and getting touches of the football week in and week out. So that's good news for the offense when you can be running the game, and then also you have Bryant Sheriff moving the football around very well between his many receivers and tight ends. They have weapons, and as you've seen in the past from even just from last year, there's vast improvements in the points category. And, for football, if you're putting points on the board, there's a good chance you're going to win the game. So now, as the theme's been for the past couple weeks and so far in this show, it's time for the defense to step it up, and I think they can grab a couple more wins.
I think so too. Things might not be going in the right direction for UConn football. This year, in their attempt to revamp the program, they not only brought in a new head coach and coordinators, but they also brought a new game day host to the Rensselaer. Daniela Maryland has the story.
This is Daniela Maryland. I'm here with Andy Katz, UConn Football on game day host. Andy, what can you tell us about this part-time job?
So, after I left ESPN, I'm still under contract with ESPN. And so UConn came to me and asked if I could help them out with football. So I asked ESPN, and they said it's no problem. And so, it's been fun just sort of doing something a little different in this transition period. And so we've had 3 games so far. Got 3 more to go. I've just sort of enjoyed doing something a little different in the interim.
When UConn came knocking on your door, what made you say, yes, I want to be part of that?
Well, it's sort of a weird situation because, I'm not someone who likes to just sit around and do nothing. And I went sort of 24/7 for so long, for 18 years at ESPN. And I'm just in a transition period. And I thought, since I'm here, my family's here, it's basically just coming to some football games, 6 home games, so it's not a big deal. And, I was looking for an opportunity to help out UConn, and because I know everyone here from covering them for so long. And so everyone's been great so far, and, it'd be better if the team was playing a little bit better, but it's been entertaining at least.
Speaking about the team, what do you see in this team? I know that we just had a changing coaching staff, but what do you see so far in this team?
Well, offensively, they're a lot more entertaining than they were, certainly under Bob Diaco, and so Randy Edsall's brought that. Defensively, they've gone in the opposite direction. They just don't have the personnel at this juncture to compete at a high level, and it's just going to take time. It's going to take recruiting classes. After Edsall left, there really was a downward dip, and now they're trying to climb back up out of that, and fans are just going to have to be patient because it may take a few years to really see the real growth on both sides of the football. You can see schematically on the offensive side, they are playing a much better, more exciting brand of football, but they just don't have the personnel to compete at the highest level.
And I know your background is basketball. How do you feel doing football?
I actually, years ago, when I was in newspapers, I did cover football. Mm-hmm. And so it's not a complete foreign game to me. I actually like the challenge of just doing different things.
Do you have anything to say to our fans?
Be patient.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Welcome back with more UC Sports. It may not be cold enough yet, but winter sports have begun, and Alexandria Palmer spent some time at the rink on Saturday to see the home opener of the UConn women's ice hockey team. Now, Alexandria joins us here at the desk to give us some insight into the season so far. Alexandria, so far, what has been the team's biggest struggle?
It was an extremely tough loss for the Huskies. The downfall would definitely have to be their second period gameplay in this particular game. In the first and third periods, UConn seemed strong, and their defense was very tight and didn't allow any goals. But this changed in the second period. The Huskies accumulated 3 penalties. The University of Vermont took advantage of these power plays and scored 2 power play goals right away. There's a difference between having good aggression and too much aggression. In this game, the Huskies had way too much aggression. So also, Vermont's goalie, Sydney Scobie, was on fire. She stopped 27 shots and only allowed 1 goal. She was impressive. It might have been different if the Huskies were not on the penalty kill the majority of the second period, but the final score of the game was 2-1 Vermont.
What did the coaches and players take away from this loss?
I think the players realize now that the penalties were the team's biggest struggle. When I was talking to Coach Chris McKenzie, he was obviously disappointed about the loss, but he knew where to work on. He knows there needs to be more momentum in the second period and not as many penalties anymore.
Definitely. Overall, how do you think this season will go?
I honestly believe that we have a strong team and can be successful. It's the beginning of the season. The team is learning how to work together and get over these errors. The 5-on-5 play is good, just the penalties is what lost them the game. The Huskies goalie, Annie Bellinger, had a good game stopping 18 shots, but there's only so much you can do when the other team is on the power play most of the game. So the next game will be against Union New York on Friday, and I'm excited to see how the coach is going to take the last game's errors and improve on it.
All right, thanks, Alex. It'll be interesting to see how the rest of the year plays out. We'll talk about men's hockey and plenty more on the other side of this next commercial break, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more UC Sports. Welcome back to UC Sports. On the men's side, men's hockey split their 2-game set 1-1 with Maine. The Huskies lost the first game 4-3 in overtime, but came back to even their series with the Black Bears with a dominating 5-1 victory in the second matchup. Jeff White, Kasperi Ojentekinen, and Benjamin Freeman scored the 3 goals in the first game, and Derek Pratt, Corey Ronan, Carl Elmir, Alexander Payusev, and Maxim Letnov scored UConn's 5 goals in their victory in the second game. Now, I'm rejoined by my co-anchor, Nate Nugent, who was at the Geyer Gymnasium this weekend to cover the volleyball team. Nate, tell us what you saw.
That's right, Ben. We got to see the Cincinnati Bearcats defeat the UConn women's volleyball team 3-1 in a very thrilling contest. The Huskies brought their all, but were overmatched by a strong Bearcats lineup. The Bearcats finished with numerous kills, and their high-energy attack led them to victory against our Huskies. The Huskies looked to bounce back yesterday against Eastern Carolina, but lost that match as well, 3-1 in a hard-fought game. The Huskies received great contributions nonetheless from outside hitter Kayla Williams in both matchups, and she will be important in the Huskies' attempt to bounce back. They take on the University of Central Florida this Friday, so let's hope they can turn their luck around.
2 straight losses for the Huskies. What did you see out there that you think they need to work on?
From what I saw, the defense needs some work out there. They aren't communicating well, rotations are slow, and the energy looks lackluster out there. The team has so much talent, they just have to go all in going forward and show some grit in not allowing the other team to score. While volleyball was playing in the friendly confines of stores, a lot of teams had to play away from UConn.
That's right, both the women's and men's soccer team played against conference opponents. Women's soccer went on a 2-game road trip, which opened with a matchup against Tulsa on Thursday, where junior Vivian Biles scored the game's only goal 4 minutes into the second half to give UConn the 1-0 victory. The Huskies then took on Memphis yesterday, which began with the Tigers notching 2 quick goals in the first 12 minutes and 15 seconds, and adding a third goal in the opening minutes of the second half. Down 3-0 with 42 minutes left in the game, UConn charged back with 2 second-half goals recorded by Regan Schiappa and Yamile Evelard. In the end, it wasn't enough as UConn fell to Memphis 3-2. The Huskies returned home from the road trip with an overall record of 4 wins, 6 losses, and 3 ties, and 5th place in the American Athletic Conference. Women's soccer will play their next 2 games at home, starting off against SMU on Thursday.
The UConn men's soccer team were victorious in their battle against the Cincinnati Bearcats. It was an exciting one as the Huskies won the match 1-0 in a fierce fight out there on the pitch. The Huskies will look to keep up that form in their next match and continue their winning ways on the road to another successful season. The man with the stellar finish this game was standout forward Abdul Baki Jam. He continues his outstanding play and has been the man in form up front for the UConn Huskies.
Now, field hockey is still dominating every team they play. This weekend, they traveled to Villanova, and check this out. They won 12-0, and then they went on to beat 14th-ranked Princeton 5-3.
It's really impressive what they're doing out there. The team arguably has the best player in the country, Charlotte Weitner, who is now the only player with the most goals in UConn history with 101 goals and counting. There's also always time for highlighting Nina Klein's record in goal, as she has a school record 76 wins as the starting goalie for the field hockey team. She continues to be consistent, and we look forward to see how far that record will go.
Like you said, Weitner is second in the nation in scoring with 19 goals and 10 assists this season. No doubt one of the best athletes we have. And Nate, she's doing it all on the field while pursuing an engineering degree. Talk about a busy schedule.
And that's absolutely absurd. I don't know how she does it. She continues to do anything and everything out there. And now it's time for a quick commercial break. We'll be back to talk about professional sports once we return, so stay tuned. Welcome back. Now we will be talking about Huskies in the professional sports world.
All of us here at UCTV would like to congratulate former UConn All-American and future Hall of Famer Maya Moore and the Minnesota Lynx on winning the 2017 WNBA title last Wednesday. Moore delivered for her team in the decisive do-or-die Game 5 with a double-double, scoring 18 points and grabbing 10 rebounds. Since drafting Maya Moore 7 years ago, the Lynx have made 6 finals appearances and won 4 titles in that span, which are both tops in the league during that time.
In other news, George Springer of the Houston Astros just won the ALDS and was instrumental in helping his team move on to the next round. The ALCS is right around the corner, and Springer and the Astros are really starting to heat up. Sadly, that's all the updates we have for you tonight. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at the UCTV Channel 14 and on Twitter at UCTV Sports for all things UConn sports. For Ben Stemmer, I'm Nate Nugent, and thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon. Good night.